don't you get a little bit suspicious when somebody's trying to manipulate you to feel a certain way?
Well, what you've just described is what happened with COVID.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. You know, if you have a real virus that's killing people all over the world, then why do you have to test for it with a test that's not testing for it, which is what the creator of the PCR test, Kerry Mullis, said it can't tell if you're sick. So why are they using a test to test if you're sick when the creator said it can't do that? Because every time you test positive with a test not testing for the virus, you call it a case. And that's where your data comes from for all the cases. And then for the first time in human history, you bring in a law or a way of doing things that if you die of any other cause within 28 days of a test not testing for the virus, then COVID-19 goes on your death certificate, which gives you the death numbers. Now, if you have a real virus going around doing all this damage to people, then you don't have to do that. You don't have to use a drug called midazolam, as the British government did, to kill vast numbers of old people in care homes in the spring of 2020 and call it the first wave of COVID. Because COVID will give you a first wave, if it existed, as they claim, without any use of midazolam, which is an end-of-life drug, which is used by some American states in the execution process. You don't have to use remdesivir, as instigated by Anthony Fauci, to treat people who've tested positive for COVID with a test not testing for it. The remdesivir drug was known, provable fact, before to destroy organs, to create multiple organ failure, especially the kidneys. And the kidneys stopped processing fluid. Fluid builds up in the abdominal cavity. People start struggling to breathe, and COVID-19 goes on the death certificate. Now, you don't need any of that. And you don't need human-caused climate change to be real. You just have to call everything that is climatic, that is in any way extreme or mildly extreme, you have to call it human-caused climate change. It's exactly the same scam. And both of those hoaxes are designed to the same end because the same people are behind them. You had Bill Gates in February 2021 taking time away from selling the fake vaccine with all its deadly consequences since to promote a new book of his saying climate change is going to destroy the world and we have to take all these measures and instigate all these policies of control and dystopia to save ourselves. It's the same people to the same end. And what is that end? Over the decades, I've described what the goal is in terms of global society. And I've, since the Hunger Games Society or the Hunger Games movies came out, I've called it the Hunger Games Society. And it's very simple structure. You imagine a pyramid. At the top of the pyramid are a tiny few people, the inner core of this global cult. And they control, this is where it's going, food production, who has water and who doesn't, all the essentials for human survival, because it's an anti-human agenda, like energy, for instance. And at the bottom of the pyramid, you've got the mass of humanity who are in under the control of the few through dependency. If you can get anyone dependent upon you, you control them. The idea is to create a situation in which the mass of the global population are under a dependency for survival on the few that control the means of survival. And in between the two is meant to be a police military state, a fusion of the two ultimately, to impose the will of the few on the many and to stop the many rebelling against the few. Now, that is a structure I've been talking about for decades, that this is where it was going. And now look at what's happening. And you think, well, how do you then, okay, you can have your military police state, but there's still billions of people. And ultimately, and potentially they could rebel in numbers that would be unstoppable. We still can for the moment. So how do you do it? Well, you do it through AI. You make sure that you have a digital currency, which I was been predicting in my book since 1992, in a book called The Robots' Rebellion. And you make it programmable, which is what they're talking about quite openly now. And a programmable digital currency means that whoever programs it can dictate what it's used for. So if you want to buy a book about exposing the conspiracy, well, under this dystopia, you won't be able to buy it because your money won't buy it because it's programmed not to buy it. And then you say, okay, well, I'll pay cash. Well, the idea, of course, is that cash disappears. And it's disappearing at an extraordinarily fast rate now for this very reason. You also have a carbon limit, so that once there are credit cards now that are circulating, which are saying that once you reach a certain carbon limit in, say, a month, and you have bought things that have been said to produce this much carbon, then you can't buy them anymore. You can't use the card anymore until you go on to another carbon sequence. And so through the hoax of human-caused climate change, this is why all these things are going on and getting faster. You might note that if you look at what was predicted and what's doing the predicting, computer models, and computer models out of places like the Imperial College in London, who produced the computer models for COVID that justified lockdown.
Right.
If you look at the computer models, and that's dead simple to manipulate, you put rubbish in, you're going to get rubbish out the other end. It's very easy to manipulate, and that's where it's coming from. But even if you look at them, what is their claim is happening now in terms of the speed of climate change is far, far quicker and more advanced than ever even the computer models predicted. So why is that happening? It's happening because they're desperate to sell this, because as they're doing it, and as these kind of, quote, weather events unfold, they're desperately trying to get these this digital concentration camp into position. And once they have, they know there's pretty much no going back.
Thanks for watching that clip. If you want to hear the entire episode in audio format, just go wherever podcasts are served, search for Macroaggressions, subscribe to the show, and please rate it when you get a chance. Thanks, everybody.